In this video, I'm teaching you how comic book ordering really works. What's up, guys? BJ Kicks here. I buy comics, I read them, and I review them, all for your viewing pleasure. And this is the latest episode of Comics 101, the series where I teach you all the things I wish I knew when I was getting into comics for the first time. Now, today we're talking about how comic book ordering really works. That way you can guarantee the books that you want long before they ever come out. Because one thing that I hate is going online, watching one of my favorite comic book YouTubers or going to one of the comic book news websites and finding out that there's a first appearance going on. There's something interesting happening. A major character died or debuted in an issue, right? So it's like, all right, I didn't order that one. Let me go ahead to the shop and grab one. And you go to the shop and a couple of things might happen, right? One is the shop might have it, but it's now behind the counter. It's no longer that $3.99 cover price. Now you got to pay $20, $50, $60 just to get this issue and be caught up on the story. Or even worse, it's sold out completely and all the copies on eBay are going for dumb prices. Yeah, if you've been there, I've been there too. It sucks. And I wanted to give you all of the game, all the knowledge so that you understand how to best avoid that in the future, because comic books are ordered kind of differently than most products. So today I'm giving you a super detailed, deep dive into how comic book ordering works, the supply chain, solicitations, final order cutoff, and then you finally getting a book in your hands. So if you would like to skip around to listen to one part or another, I will leave timestamps in the description down below. My gift to you. But if you stay here the whole time, I'm sure you will get some fun and interesting information out of it. If not, a couple of jokes and memes or something, right? Anyway, in order to really talk about how to guarantee that you get books and you're first in line, we got to understand the supply chain, right? And for comics, it's a little bit different from your standard retail products. Typically, your manufacturer will decide, all right, you know what? I want to make a new iPhone, right? Apple's like, I want to make a new iPhone. And so they come up with a design, and based on some educated guesses about how well their products have done in the past and so on, they'll be like, all right, we're going to make a certain number of this iPhone. Let's say it's 10 million. We're going to make 10 million iPhones this year, and hopefully they all sell through and so on. So they put in that order to the manufacturer. The manufacturer makes 10 million iPhones. So there's only 10 million iPhones to go around. Cool. That manufacturer, they make the 10 million iPhones, they assemble them, they get the packaging, all that together, and they ship off the finished products in cases to a wholesaler. Now, a wholesaler is basically just a big warehouse company, and what their job is to send off smaller quantities of these iPhones to the individual retail store. The retail store gets the iPhones in stock, puts them on shelves, and you walk in, grab one off the shelf, and you check out at the register. And there you go. That's the supply chain from the idea in Tim Cook's head all the way down to you in your house, right? Now, in comic books, the supply chain is pretty much the same. You've got your publisher, which is Marvel and DC, and they're putting together the intellectual property that becomes a comic book. You've got your printer who manufactures the books. You've got your distributor who sells them to the retailer. And you've got the retailer, your local comic shop, which sells the books to you. But there's one thing that's different about the comic shop or the comic book buying experience, and that's the beginning stage. Remember in traditional retail where I told you that the manufacturer or the publisher or, the company, the idea company, Apple, would say, all right, we're going to make an educated guess about how many things to manufacture. Well, in the comic book industry, everything that is manufactured is actually based on pre-orders. And that's something that's relatively unique. There's not a lot of other industries or vertical markets that operate that way, where the end result of how many units are manufactured is dependent on how many units are pre-ordered. statues and specialty items are that way, but comic books are that way too. So now that you understand what's unique about comics, let's talk about the process. How do the end users, the customers, decide how much of a product is made? So in order to do that, we got to talk about solicitations. So again, your publishers, DC, Marvel, they're constantly contracting with writers and artists and colorists and inkers and so on to create editorial product, to create a comic book. But for comics, instead of just saying, all right, I think Incredible Hulk is going to sell 10 million copies next month, what these publishers do is they release a solicitation. A solicitation is an advertisement that goes directly to comic book retailers that says, hey, here are all the books coming out in a couple of months, and here's your deadline to order them. And so this solicitation is like the first glimpse you get at what books are going to be available. Now, typically, your solicitation is available about 3 months in advance. So, example, your previews catalog or your solicitation that comes out in December is typically for books that are going to be on sale in February. So 2 to 3 months in advance. Really cool stuff. Now, solicitation is interesting because basically the solicitation is the publisher saying, hey, retailer, here are the books that are going to be available. And if you want those books in your store, you need to order them from your distributor, the wholesaler, right? Now, back in the day, like literally just 3 years ago, there was only one comic book distributor and things were pretty easy. The comic book distributor was Diamond Comics Distributors, and every comic book that you wanted to order in the direct market went through Diamond. Now there are several, but what they do is every month they print out this huge catalog. So all the publishers that work with Diamond go into the previews catalog, and that is where new books are solicited for release every month. So your retailer gets a copy of this book. They get online order forms. They get paper order forms. And it's like, all right, here's the product. And here's what date you've got to get back to us on that product. Now, the solicitation has become such an event that it's not just one solicitation book. It used to be one that carried everything. Well, now the major publishers, Marvel and DC, they've got their own, I flip those, but Marvel and DC, they've got their own previews books. So Marvel, theirs is just called Marvel Previews. And you know, that way you can see all the Marvel product together without those pesky other companies, right? DC's got one called DC Connect, where you can see all the DC product together without being distracted by any other pesky products. And then you've got the traditional previews magazine that's got basically every other publisher, IDW, Dark Horse, all these different Dynamite, all these different publishers. Now, with these books, again, they've got a solicitation, which is basically just some cover art, information about the creative team, and a short blurb describing what's happening in that book. But what also comes along with each book is a deadline to order, and that deadline is called Final Order Cutoff. Now, Final Order Cutoff is the last day that a retailer can order a book in order to affect the manufacturing numbers, right? To guarantee that whatever they order is going to be there. So let's say, I don't know, Donald Duck #1 is coming out in February. Well, in December, you're going to get that solicitation, and the final order cutoff for that book is likely going to be sometime either end of December or early January, right? So final order cutoff happens and you didn't put in your order. Well, you can still go to the comic shop and ask for a book and they can put in that order. But if there are not enough copies printed, then what will happen is that store will be allocated, which means everything they order isn't going to show up. So now instead of getting 10 copies of Donald Duck for the store, they're getting 2 because that's all that was left over. And now that comic shop's got to decide which 2 of their customers are going to get Donald Duck #1. And if you didn't order before the F.O.C, you might not be one of those lucky 2. Does that make sense? So all the orders that are placed before final order cutoff, you give those numbers to the distributor gives those numbers to the publisher, and the publisher gives that number to the printer. So to determine exactly how many copies of a book, whether it's a single issue, a trade paperback, a hardcover collection, all those numbers are determined based on the pre-orders that are placed by the retailer. Make sense? So, final order cutoff is the deadline to order a book before it goes into production, and final order cutoff is every single week. Typically on Sunday, some distributors have a deadline of Monday to place that final order. So if you're a savvy customer and you're trying to guarantee the book that you want, you got to place that order before final order cutoff. Now, in order to find out which books are up for F.O.C. every single week, the best thing to do, you could, of course, order physical copies of these previews and pick them up at your local comic shop. But I think the better thing to do is just go to the distributors' websites. So for Diamond, you can go to previewsworld.com, and there's a collection every single week that just says this week's F.O.C. or this week's final orders due. For Lunar distribution, same thing. You can actually scroll through their website and see which books are coming up on F.O.C. every week. And then for Marvel and some other publishers, that you would go to Penguin Random House or prhcomics.com. And you can see on those, hey, final orders due this Monday. Don't forget to order those. So these are websites that your retailers or your local comic shops use all the time. And if you want to be like a pro comics buyer, then you got to get on those websites. But like I said, alternatively, you could just order the physical catalogs, but they take up a lot of space in your house. 0 out of 10. Don't recommend. Now, this pre-ordering is actually super important because, like I said, pre-ordering is what determines how much of a book is manufactured in the comic book industry. So let's say a book gets a ton of pre-orders. Well, that means that people believe in it. People are really excited about it. So now these publishers might print a bunch of extra copies and put them out into like other markets, sell them more at the newsstand or at Barnes & Noble or stuff like that. But conversely, if a book does not get enough pre-orders, it doesn't meet a certain threshold, well, then the companies might not see that as a viable or profitable project, and they could cancel a series long before it even starts. Because like I said, most books are solicited 2 to 3 months in advance. So let's say Darkwing Duck #1 only got 5 pre-orders. Well, that's not enough money to pay for printing. That's not enough money to pay the artist and the writer. They're just going to cancel that book, and Darkwing Duck #1 is just never going to come out. That's how that goes. So it's really, really important to pre-order. And the best tool that you have at your disposal for pre-ordering is the pull list. Now, the pull list is basically a verbal agreement, a verbal contract that you as a customer have with your local comic shop. It's basically a pre-order system. So for me, I've got a pull list, and what I tell my comic shop is, hey, every month, I want you to set aside these specific series for me. So I'm subscribed to Batman, Action Comics, Superman, Nightwing, and a bunch of other titles. You've seen my playlist, right? So basically, I've got these 4 titles. These are recurring monthly periodical titles that are on my list, and I'm on the hook for those. Now, because I went ahead and told my comic shop in advance, hey, I always want these 4 books. When there's a new copy of this, give it to me. Well, now my comic shop manager doesn't have to like guess as to how many books he has to buy or issues he has to buy. Instead, he's got a solid number to draw from that says, all right, cool. I've got 18 customers that want I Am Batman #17. So I'm going to order those 18, and I'll probably order 5 more just to display on the shelf in case somebody walks in and wants a copy. Cool. So 18 and 5 is 23. Those 23, let's round it up to 24, 25. That's a nice prime number. Whatever. Round it up to 25. He's going to order 25 copies of that book. Now he's got 7 to display on the shelf. 18 are never going to see the light of day because they're going directly into a customer's box. And because I gave him that peace of mind, that guaranteed income, because that's basically what it is, you're signing up to buy these books at a later date, he actually gives me a discount on my total. Most comic shops will give you a discount for being a subscriber. My local comic shop has 10%. I've seen as high as 25% discounts, which It's crazy on such a low margin product. But anyway, the best tool you have at your disposal is that pull list. Because again, if you're a big Batman fan, you know you're going to want Batman anyway. Why leave it up to chance? No, when you have a pull list, you're saying, hey, whenever that book comes out, put it behind the counter. Don't put it out for other people to sell. I'm going to grab it. So when I get here, just have it sitting there waiting for me. And that's what I do every single week. And it's a great system. I walk in, I don't need to browse the shelves, but sometimes I do. But everything that I want is there. And that's cool for recurring series like stuff like Batman, Superman. That's going to come out every single month, no matter what. But some of these indie series, some of these mini series, some of these one shots, like for example, last week, Batman, One Bad Day, Mr. Freeze came out. And, you know, I heard it was really good. I wasn't collecting the One Bad Day series before that, but I heard it was good. I walked in the store. Thankfully, there were copies. But if I had ordered it before F.O.C, I'd have had it guaranteed either way. Stuff like this. Batman Spawn with a ton of freaking variant covers, right? You're going to want that book. So you need to pre-order it, especially if you want a specific cover by a different variant cover artist, because you never know how many copies your shop is going to order. Now, since we're talking about pull lists, I do want to take a quick moment to talk about pull list etiquette, because again, this pull list is really a verbal contract between you and your comic shop saying, hey, if you order this book for me and you set it aside and don't let anyone else access it, then I'm going to come to the store and pay you for that book. That's your side of the agreement. And when you don't pick up your side of that agreement, if you order a bunch of books and never come in to pick them up, then that just means your comic shop has spent a bunch of money that they didn't necessarily have. And what's even worse is they held those books. So where those books may have been really valuable that day, by the time you let them know, hey, I don't want this anymore or whatever, chances are they've lost their opportunity to sell it to anyone else. So now this book that could have been a $5, $6, $10 book ends up in a dollar bin 3 years down the road. And unfortunately, your comic shop lost money on that sale. So don't be that guy that signs up for a bunch of books and never buys them. Even if you got to work out an agreement with the LCS owner and just say, hey, I'm going to buy these little by little, just don't disappear on them. Don't disappear on them. That's proper pull list etiquette. All right, so let's just recap real quick. When new books are going to be coming out, they get solicited. They get added to a previews catalog. They get added to all these different websites. And so 3 months in advance, what you want to do is check those distributor websites, whether it's previewsworld.com, prhcomics.com, or lunardistribution.com. And you want to see what books are coming out and when. Every single week, you want to take a look at the final orders due section on all those distributors, and you want to call your LCS no later than Friday morning and go ahead and order those books that are on final order cutoff that week. Add those books to your pull list and you're good to go. And the great thing is you can order as many copies as you want. For example, Static. Issue number 1 is getting a polybag reprint. Yes, that Static number 1 from 1993. It's getting a reprint in February. I ordered 5 copies because, well, I'm probably going to give a couple away. Stay tuned for that. But I ordered 5 copies and I don't have to worry about anybody else grabbing them and snatching them up because I placed my order before F.O.C. Once you place your order, just make sure you go to the comic shop and pick up the books. It's the least you could do. And, just don't be a jerk. Pick up your books. That's proper pull list etiquette. And that is how you guarantee that you get the books you want every single time. Pay attention to these previews. Pay attention to the solicits. They throw stuff in here all the time. There are all kinds of hints as to who's going to live, who's going to die, when there's going to be a new villain, when there's going to be something to be excited about. All these clues are here. And if you read enough comics and you read enough between the lines, you'll know what to order. You'll know what's hot. And even if you're not buying things for speculation reasons, you'll know what you need to go ahead and order ahead on, because the people that are speculators are going to make sure those books sell out whether you get a copy or not. And so that was the ultimate guide to ordering comics, F.O.C, solicitations, and how everything works. If you've got more questions that you want me to answer about comics, leave them in the description down below. This video would not be possible, however, without the help of our channel family. You guys help me focus on just making quality content and not just stuff that the algorithm is going to love. So if you want to be a co-producer on the channel, get access to behind the scenes content, early access to videos like this one, then you got to join the family, and the link's in the description down below. But anyway, I'm going to go sign off. I'm going to get something to drink. This is a long video. So hope you saw something you liked in this one. And if not, hey, that's cool. So you can always buy what you like. Just make sure you read what you buy and be nice to others. Because kindness makes the world go round. Peace.